So this is our topic on again Indian economy, disaster and disaster management. So we have already so in the syllabus of GS paper 3 we have already completed up to investment models, and now we are moving towards this topic of disaster and disaster management, because the topics on science and technology and development and achievement of Indian in science and technologies and in the field of IT, space and technology, these are all the we call it as a current affair topics. Okay, current affair topics in which we have to include with the current affair perspective at most. Okay, so this we will be completing, we will be just deciding on how we are going to take on these topics in a proper way so that you have a proper understanding of all these topics. So we will be doing disaster and disaster management today. Okay, so before going to anything, so first of all we should know what is the meaning of disaster. Okay, a disaster is something which all of suddenly strikes. Okay, it strikes suddenly and it disrupts the normal life of the people. Okay, because of that there may be minimal damage, there may be severe damage to both life and property. Okay, which is very difficult, which is beyond the capacity of the society to cope up with their own resources. Okay, so that is why there is a necessary there is a very much need in order to have a significant emergency provisions has to be there in order to tackle these situations. Okay, so if we go by the WHO definitions of 1998, okay, World Health Organization 1998 definition of the disaster, it says that a serious disruption of the functioning of a community or a society causing widespread human, material, economic or environmental losses. So everything, okay, and losses that exceeds the ability of the affected community or society to cope up with their own resources. So I just wanted to quote example of, like, in 2015 there was a Nepal earthquake that has happened. So because of that it has totally disrupted the economy of the Nepal. Okay, it has totally disrupted the economy of the Nepal, and people have lost their jobs, people have lost their infrastructure, and the whole economy got collapsed over there. Okay, so people from Nepal have migrated to various countries, and especially they came to India in search of various type of jobs, because Nepal is not having that much of resources in order to cope up with these type of heavy earthquakes. Okay, so this is what I wanted to provide you with an example over here. Okay, so if we go by 1990s until now, we have over 10,700 disaster that we have stuck, and this have affected 6 billion people of the world. That means if we go by the concept, mostly everybody got affected by some or the other kind of disaster, leaving some people behind, right? So under that category if we go, so flood and storms, like in the flood and storm we can also counting the cyclones and tsunami. Okay, so these are accounting for around 42% of these events, and 50% of the people affected by this two single events. Okay, and if we go by the year which is called as being the worst year, so this is year 2002, which hit, the drought has hit severely in our country. Okay, and storms and floods in China, they have all affected 658 million people. Okay, earthquake are the deadliest disaster, because in earthquake we have a heavy loss of property and life. Okay, so close to 50% of all the disaster death that has happened since 1990 is because of the earthquake. Okay, so this is what is the basic statistics regarding the disaster and a definition of a disaster. Now if we go over here and in a form of a graph that we wanted to understand, so here you can see there is a drought, earthquake, extreme temperature, flood condition, landslides, storm, volcanic activity and wildfire. right? So we can see that there is between 2000 and 2001 and 2, you can see this is a highest graph which is accounting for 2002 year, okay, which is accounting for maximum of drought. Okay, this is drought. And then after that, this blue portion is flood. Okay, then we have a storms. Okay, after storms, we have some other activities are also there. So this is the area which is being severely hit. And if we see, we can see a small red line over here. Okay, a small red line over here, which shows that this year was hit by 2019. If we go by that concept, so this is being hit by the wildfires are being hit by over here. So we can see that there is a like one five when 2015 was there. Okay, again we have a situation, we are being hit by earthquakes and various other places, right? So by looking into the graph, we can easily find out that mostly the disaster are being hit by like a droughts, and then we have a flood conditions, and then we have a earthquake. So mainly three type of disaster are there which are being mostly hitting the various part of the world, and rest are not that much, so they are also severe, but they are not creating they are not affecting that much of people, right? So let's go ahead with the what are the classification of disaster. Okay, we all know that the disaster are classified into two categories. Okay, so they can be natural, disaster, they can be man-made disaster. Natural, in which we don't have any control. Okay, they happens like that. Okay, the flood can happen, now earthquake can happen, drought can happen, wildfire can happen. But right now even flood and drought and even no, not drought, like wildfire are also being called as a man-made fire. Okay, so these have a range from minor to the major impact. Okay, so they may have a minor impact, they may have a major impact. Okay, so under the natural disaster, it is like a sudden ecological disruption. Okay, under the if we go by the natural disaster, we can talk about in the geographical term. Okay, these are the geographical terms are there, which are being geographical, hydrological, meteorological, climatological, or biological. Okay, geophysical means which is related to the earth's surface. Okay, whenever we are talking about the related to the earth's surface, we are talking about the earthquakes. Okay, so we are here earthquake, Gujarat earthquake, that is we called it as Bhuj, right? Then we have a 2015 earthquake is there, right? So we are all being having, and every year we are hit by very small and minor earthquakes in our country. Okay, so we always get a reports like this. Normally we heard that Delhi is hit by 4.5 Richter scale earthquakes and like that. Okay, so these are called geophysical disaster. Then hydrological, hydro means water related. Okay, normally it is flood. Okay, if we go by the flooding, we can find out like it is tsunami of 2011. Okay, tsunami of 2004. Okay, in which India lost is the southernmost point, that is called Indira Point, right? Then we have a floods are there. Okay, we can see at every places, every year we are getting floods, right? Then meteorological. Okay, climatological, like meteorological related, it is cyclones. So a lot of cyclones are there. Recently Bipar Joy cyclone was there, which hits the coast of Gujarat, right? Then climatological, it keeps on based on the climate. Like right now, this concept of heat waves have increased. Heat waves are being hitting each and every part of the country. Okay, especially focusing on Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, where people are being are dying because of the heat waves. Okay, in Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, everywhere if we go, even in the cool places also, they are also getting hit by the heat waves. Okay, then there are a drought condition that are happening. The Bundelkhand region, Bundelkhand region of Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh, which is being the worst drought hit area. Maharashtra is having a lot of drought areas. Then biological disasters are there, which we call it as epidemics. Okay, epidemics means chemical, like we can have a chemical warfare, we have a biological warfare. Right now, you know, the latest one is COVID-19 pandemic that has been in the recent memory of all of us, right? Then after that we have the man-made disaster, which are being the disaster that happens because of the mistakes of the human being. Okay, so under the man-made disasters, we are talking about like keeping some of the hazardous chemicals. Okay, first of all, we should know about the Bhopal gas tragedy. If anybody knows, it is because of the MIC, methyl isocyanate gas was there, which was leaked onto the Bhopal city, and because of that, thousands of people have lost their life on the 3rd and 4th December night of 1984. Okay, right? And then fire is also sometimes because of the if you're not able to if you're not taking the precaution properly, then fire is again a man-made disaster, because of which if you are not utilizing the things properly, it may caught up fire. So Kamla mill fire is there in 2017. Recently in kanpur in Kanpur we have Bas Mandi, okay, which got fire because of the electrical short circuit. Then transportation accidents are there, where train disasters are happening because of some of the not being aware about the various type of because of the like what we call it as the non focus has been given under this. The transportation accident happens because of the negligence. Okay, because of the negligence. Okay, because of the negligence of the drivers at various places. Okay, and structural failures are there. You know, there is recently in Bihar the bridge got collapsed in Majherat bridge in Kolkata got collapsed because of the structural damages that are there. Okay, then mining accidents are there, which are so there are coal mining accident are there, where the people get trapped inside the coal mine, and because of the burning coal mine, because of the gas in the coal mine. Okay, you might be knowing there is a movie that has been released of Akshay Kumar, which is related to the people who are trapped inside the coal mine, right? That is being a part of mining accident. Then explosion, right? Like explosion means sometimes because of some of the Naxalite attacks and some of the extremism or terrorism. So we also get disaster in that way, because the terrorism is also being treated as one of the disaster, because it lead to widespread killing of the people. Okay, now causes of disaster occurrence. So there are four important causes of disaster occurrence are there. One is environmental degradation, then developmental processes, then political issues, and industrialization. So environmental degradation, if we go by that, we know that we are the forest covers are losing, the soil erosions is happening, flood plains are expanding, right? Then groundwater depletion is happening. So because of these all activities, if we go by at various other places, so we can see that we are losing the topsoil of our country. Okay, so we know that there are a lot of area which are being flood prone, which are being soil erosion prone, where the groundwater depletion is happening, because of that landslides are happening, right? So there are some of the environmental causes are there, which are which led to the disaster occurrence. Then developmental process. So there are a lot of developmental process that are going in our country, like we are utilizing indiscriminate use of land, then a lot of infrastructure development, lot of urbanization, technological advancement, everything is happening. Because of that, we have a rampant urbanization that is happening. So in that developmental process, there may be some of the negligence that has happened. Okay, like we have unchecked construction activities are there. So Mumbai is having a worst flooding area. Chennai got flooded because Chennai has constructed the flats and buildings at a place where it is flood prone. Okay, So we can see there is a lot of inundation during the monsoon period in 2020, right? Then political issues are there. We have wars, we have nuclear ambitions, territorial disputes, all these things are there. Like if we have a lot of issues with India, Pakistan and Kashmir issue, then we may have an armed conflict and potential humanitarian crisis. They may do a biological attack also. Okay, they may do biological attack also, right? They may do nuclear attack also, they may do chemical warfare attack also, right? Then industrialization activity also lead to various global warming, and because of that we are having extreme weather events are happening, right? So we all know that we are dependent on the coal fired power plant, which is also contributing to the polluted air throughout our country, right? Because of that we are having extreme weather situations. So these all are important causes of disaster occurrence in our country. There may be some of them, but if we go by that, if we put under certain headings, so we can put that under these important headings. Okay, now what is the impact of disaster occurrence? What happens when any disaster stuck? Okay, whenever any disaster rock stuck, it have a physical and psychological effect at the first. Okay, or first of all, there are a lot of lost lives, life will loss, lot of injuries will happen, health issues will be there again, and at the most psychological trauma that will be happening. If we go by some of the examples, so we can talk about the earthquakes, we can talk about the cyclone. Right now we are taking an example of 2020 cyclone Amphan, okay, which has caused severe destruction and loss of life to the people, right? Then because of the disaster occurrence, we have a lot of economic loss that also happens. Every disaster have an economic loss, right? If we go by the flooding, if we go by the earthquakes, if we go by the cyclones, and everywhere there are a lot of damage to the infrastructure, a lot of damage to the homes, lot of agriculture land, and etc, etc, a lot of things. Then because of the disaster, there is a lot of environmental changes also happening. There may disrupt the environmental cycle. They also cause habitat loss. They hurt, they also destroy the flora, they also destroy the fauna of that places, and because of all these things it led to the stress on the whole system. Okay, because of that it leads to the reduction of the biodiversity and slowly decline of the biodiversity. If we go by the Uttarakhand flood, okay, 2013 Uttarakhand flood was a very severe flood in which a lot of thousands of people died, and most of this body were even not recovered till now. Okay, so that has also caused huge ecological damage to the very fragile zone of the Uttarakhand, and it also led to the habitat loss, and it has severe impact on the biodiversity. Then scarcity of resources. When after the disaster is over, it led to the problem of food shortage, it led to the problem of water shortage, medicines, healthcare, and everything. Food and water, which are the basic things, have a huge shortage after the disaster, post disasters. Okay, if we go by the example of cyclone Fani, okay, in Odisha there was this led to the, after the cyclone Fani passed away, this led to the shortage of foods and drinking water in the affected areas. Then disaster also led to the displacement and vulnerability, okay, because thousands of lakhs of people being relocated from one place to the other, because if they are living in a disaster prone area, they may get hurt because of the disaster, they may get affected, they may get hugely affected. So they are being relocated by the management, by the district administration, by the local administration. Okay, because of that they face numerous challenges, because they have to set all the things all together, because at the place of disaster whatever they have made, they will be totally get destroyed. Okay, so we know that in the COVID-19 pandemic, everybody became so vulnerable. It led to the internal migration in the country. There was a huge internal migration that has happened. People who are working in remotest area of the country, they have started migrating to their villages, and in huge and lakhs and crores of number. And because in this whole process they were all facing issues of basic necessity like food, water, shelter, and various other things. Okay, so these are the impact of disaster occurrence. Now we will be talking about the vulnerability profile, like which all areas are being vulnerable to what kind of disaster in our country. So under the vulnerability profile, first of all we will be talking about the earthquakes. Okay, earthquakes, like India, 59% of Indian land mass is prone to earthquake, especially the northern portion of our India, and the western part, which is of the Gujarat and Bhuj coast, is there. Then even on the northeast part. Okay, so this India's prone, like how much prone this is, from moderate to the very high intensity. That is why we have divided into various risk zone is there. Okay, in 2021, a 6.4 Richter scale magnitude hit the Assam. Okay, and there was a lot of widespread damage that has happened. So 59% of Indian landmass is prone to earthquakes. Okay, then flood and river erosion. So 14 million hectare of land, that means the 12% of whole agricultural land of a country is prone to flood and river erosion. If we go by the statistics in what happens in 2020 in Bihar, around 8.4 million people, 84 lakh people got affected by this flood and river erosion, and because of that, this flood has caused severe erosion to the soil, and it has severely damaged the crop and infrastructure. Then cyclone and tsunami. So they are, because these cyclone and tsunami are very very powerful at the coast and near the coast, because cyclone may enter the mainland also, but tsunami cannot enter the mainland, so it has been totally confined to the coastal area. So we know that we have around 7,516 kilometers of coastal areas. Out of that, 5,700 kilometer coastline is prone to cyclone and tsunami. If we go by the cyclone Amphan in 2020, it has affected million people in West Bengal and Odisha, and recently Biparjoy, which has affected the Gujarat coast, has affected lakhs of people over there. Then drought. 68% of the cultivable area of our country is vulnerable to drought. The main thing is that why it is vulnerable to drought, because we are dependent on maximum on rainfall for irrigation purposes. Okay, so we don't have proper irrigated areas. So around 68% of the land of our country is prone to drought, because we are still dependent on the rainfall. Maximum we are dependent because they don't have proper irrigation facilities. Okay, Maharashtra is having the severe drought condition. Bundelkhand area of our Uttar Pradesh and Maharashtra and Bundelkhand area of our Uttar Pradesh and some part of the Madhya Pradesh is again severely drought prone in our country. Okay, then landslide and avalanches. So these are landslide and avalanches are the main thing in hilly areas, which are being risk of landslide and avalanches. Okay, we know that in 2021 there was a flash flood that has happened in Uttarakhand, right? So because of that, landslide happened because there is no because of the rampant deforestation, which led to a lot of casualties and infrastructure damage to the that two places. Then we have a chemical, biological, radiological and nucleological emergencies. So these are we call it as a man-made disaster. They can be created anywhere. Okay, they can be created anywhere. So we know Bhopal gas tragedy, which is in the middle of the Bhopal, which is earlier during the time of crisis happens outside the Bhopal city. Now it is inside the middle of the Bhopal city. Okay, so it can happen anywhere. Okay, then socio-economic vulnerabilities are also there. You know, COVID-19 pandemic has hit the poor very hard. Okay, has hit the poor's very very hard because of their socio-economic condition, because they are not able to tackle, they were not able to get proper food and water, shelter. That is why government is providing free food, free ration again up to 5 years, because during that time government has given 5 years free ration, double the ration during that time to around 70% of the population of our country, right? In order to make sure that they do not face any kind of disparity, they should not face any kind of social economic issues while dealing with the COVID-19 disaster. Okay, then urbanization and environmental degradation. So there is a rampant unplanned urbanization that is happening, for which we know the example from the Chennai flood. You know, Chennai, every alternate year we find that there is a lot of flooding happening in Chennai, because in Chennai they have created the housing societies in the flood plain areas of their drainage system or the river system. Okay, because they have encroached on the water bodies, they have dried the water bodies and made all the construction activity over there because of the rapid urbanization. So now water is moving towards its own body, and at that place they are finding the rapid urbanization. So because of that, there are a lot of flooding that is happening. Then climate change impact. So because of the climate change, disaster risk gets amplified. Okay, so if we have a climate change along with the disaster that is happening, we know Kerala floods, Okay, they are having extreme rainfall event link. So right now, if we go by the recent example is of the Dubai. Okay, in Dubai recently there is a rampant rainfall happened because of the cloud seeding. Okay, we know the concept of cloud seeding, where the clouds are being seeded with sodium chloride or silver iodide. Okay, these are the chemical which are sprayed on the clouds in order to provide artificial rain to these places. But because of your interference with the climatic patterns, so this has led to the severe floods in the Dubai, and Dubai is not having proper drainage system. So that is why, because of this, there was huge disruption that has happened to the Dubai normal life. Okay, now we are talking about some of the worst natural disaster and man-made disaster. Okay, we will be just finding out, like, we have a Kashmir flood that has happened in 2014, Uttarakhand flood in 2013, Indian Ocean tsunami that is a very severe, in which Indonesia got totally rattled up. Okay, 2 lakh people got died over here. Then Gujarat earthquake Bhuj, okay, during on 26th of January 2001. Okay, so 20,000 people died. Then Odisha super cyclone that has happened, because it is known by it has earlier, this cyclone has to go some other places, it has changed its track and it has came to Odisha. It has affected lot of districts and 10,000 people have died and also destroyed lot of properties over there. Then great famine has happened around 30 in 1876 to 1878, 2 years great famine has happened. 3 crore people, 30 million people died over here because of this. Okay, during this time we were under the British rule. Okay, and Corniga cyclone in 17, then Calcutta cyclone is there, then Bengal famine is there, Bhopal gas tragedy, and these are some of the old one. Okay, we have already talked about the new ones. Okay, now worst natural and man-made disaster. So we'll be talking about some of the worst natural and man-made disaster recently. In the Shera 2018, you might have heard that the rain. So we are talking about this a man-made disaster. Railway accident is a type of a man-made disaster because of the negligence of the various people who are controlling this whole process. So it is because of the man-made negligence we have this, like in 2018, that the Shera disaster happened, where a crowd is standing on the tracks where they are seeing that the Shera Mela. Okay, so there were around 60 fatalities that has happened, and it shows that there is a lapse in the crowd control measure that has been adopted at that place. Okay, because of that there was no barrier, and railway track was passing from there, and people were standing on the railway line to see the whole Mela. Okay, then a hospital fire accident that was happening due to the negligence and non-implementation of the fire safety norm. You know, there are a lot of fire safety norms are there which has to be put. You have to provide fire extinguishers, and hose pipes are there, water has to be filled every time. Okay, all these things have to be connected. So in the past few decades we can see that there are a lot of fires has happened in the hospital area, even in the companies. So there were a lot of damages to the property and life has happened. Okay, so in 2020 itself there were 10 major fire accidents that has happened in the hospitals. 10 major fire accidents. That means there's a lack of emergency provisions, there are lack of emergency evacuation plan, there was a poor maintenance facilities are there, and there's no proper fire fighting equipments are there. Okay, we can see every day there are a lot of fire accidents are happening, but because of these lack of emergency measures, lack of emergency evacuation plan, these are being severely damaging the property and the life of a people. Then infrastructure collapse. Recently, you know, there are a lot of flyovers and metro tracks and bridges are there. Okay, bridges are there which are being collapsed, and residential buildings are getting collapsed because of the poor working quality, poor maintenance quality, poor quality of the material. If we go by the numbers of the National Crime Record Bureau, we can see there is a huge rise in the infrastructure related accident every year. Okay, if we go by in 2022, there are 50 reported cases are there of infrastructure collapse. Especially you can see in Bihar, where the bridge got collapsed. Okay, where the newly constructed bridge got collapsed and it got fully submerged on water in the water. Okay, so because there is a very inadequate structural design, illegal addition, modification, and lack of enforcement of building codes and regulation. Okay, then we know Kumbh Mela was there. Okay, there was a huge stampede has happened in the Kumbh Mela and at the Allahabad railway station. Sorry, we it is not Allahabad right now, it is Prayagraj railway station. Okay, so again we need a very important crowd management techniques. Okay, we know that at various places where a lot of people are getting gathered at various places, like in the religious festivals are there, mass gatherings are happening. Okay, so there is a need for better crowd control measures has to be there. Government has to put a lot of important measures over there. In 2013, this Kumbh Mela on the river bank, around 36 pilgrims have died because of that. Okay, so proper, because what happens is that there was no proper crowd control measures, there was no proper entry exit point, people are going at here and there places, there is no proper movement of the people. Okay, and we do, and even if the disaster happens, there is no proper medical and emergency facilities that are being provided over there. Okay, so this has to, these all issues have to be looked very, very comprehensively, then only a proper solution can be there. Okay, maintenance, public awareness, safety consciousness has to be created among the people in order to properly manage this situation if anything like that stuck anywhere. Okay, now stages in disaster management. What happens, like during in the disaster management, what are the stages? So first of all, there is before disaster, that means disaster has not happened. What is happening before, what we can do? Okay, so before disaster is stucking, we have three things that we can do. We can take preventive measures, we can do some mitigation measures. Preventive measures means like we can just see that the disaster should not occur. Okay, these are the preventive measures. We know that if this happens, this will happen to lead to the disaster, so we will take some preventive measures so that this should not occur. Okay, then mitigation, that means focus on reducing the severity. That means if something has happened, how we can reduce the severity of this thing. Okay, if something like if all of a sudden a stampede has happened, so how we can reduce the severity of that stampede. Okay, then preparedness, how we can be better prepared beforehand until and unless the disaster struck. Okay, how we are betterly prepared beforehand, right? So aiming at preventing activities, reducing their likelihood. Like if we are preventing something, so this will not, so the occurrence of the disaster will reduce their likelihood. Okay, so we can have building codes, we have a zoning regulation, we can make out the high risk prone areas. Okay, so we know that in India we have a national cyclone risk mitigation projects are going on, right? So which are preventing the loss and life of a property of a people, which are preventing the loss of life and property of a people, because we have a better early warning system for them. Then mitigation. Okay, mitigation, like how we can reduce the severity. Okay, like we can when if any flood is coming, okay, we can construct the embankments at that area. Like if this is a river, okay, if this is a river, we can construct a flood embankments over here, so that even if slight rise in the water happen, it should not enter to the city. Okay, so this is again a mitigation measure which we can utilize. We can also generate the public awareness also. Okay, like we know Indian government is running Indian afforestation program. The major focus area is that why we are running the Indian afforestation program. The main thing is that we wanted to prevent the landslides. Okay, we wanted to prevent the soil, we wanted to improve the soil stability, and we also wanted to make sure that the water should get absorbed by the plants. Okay, then preparedness. What happened with the preparedness? Okay, so we wanted to enhance the capacity addition, and so that we can have a proper effective response in all these areas, right? So we can conduct the drills, we can conduct the mock drills, we can do the emergency response plan. We should put emergency response plan. You can go to any company, any office, you can see there is a fire safety exit, fire safety exit plan is always there. They will be showing that if something happens over here, this is your room, you can go from here like that, and this is your exit area, right? So this is how you wanted to look forward, where everywhere you can conduct drill, you can make a plan. Okay, you can stockpiling various essential commodities, right? So we have our National Disaster Management Authority, which is in place, which is conducting regularly training programs and workshop in order to prevent any kind of disaster, and also training the people for what type of response that you wanted to show during the time of disaster when it is stucking. Okay, now we have a during the disaster we can only respond. Okay, during the disaster we can only respond, like what immediate action we can take. So under the disaster responding time, what is the immediate action we can take regarding how we can address the needs of the affected population, like how we can minimize the losses. Now disaster has already happened, right? Now what is the major things, like what response we can take, like how we can reduce the how we can reduce the loss of life, how we can reduce the loss of reduce the loss of property. Okay, so like if we go, like how immediately we can go for search and rescue operation, because during that the crucial hour are the very starting hour, are the very crucial hour during the disaster when it is stucking, right? During the Uttarakhand flood, the Indian Army and NDRF have conducted large scale rescue operation. Okay, because this happened after the disaster has already struck. So they have done a large scale rescue operation where the people are stranded at various other places where they are providing medical assistance and need and medicines and various other shelter, food and water and everything to these people. Okay, so what is the immediate action that you are taking? Then after disaster has happened, what we are expecting to do? Now we will do the recovery process and we do the reconstruction process. Okay, so now we are mostly focusing on how we can restore what has been damaged. Okay, how we can move on to and make it a better place. Okay, how, like first of all we have to make a proper provision for fooding and sheltering, and then we how we can restore the essential services like electricity and water, right? So here we have taken an example of 2004 Indian tsunami, where we have started a plan, plan that is called India's Comprehensive Tsunami Rehabilitation Program, CTRP program, Comprehensive Tsunami Rehabilitation Program. We are focusing on building the coastal infrastructure, how we can provide them with medical support, psychological support, medicinal support and social support, like how we can provide them with a long-term recovery, how we can provide, like how affected communities can be again put into the mainstream line. Okay, now what is the reconstruction process that we will be following? Okay, so because after the disaster there's a lot of loss of property that was happening, so how we are going to rebuild the infrastructure, from where, how we have to go from temporary to the permanent structure, how we have to rehabilitate the people, how we are going to rehabilitate the homes, houses, schools, hospitals and critical infrastructure like electricity, water supply lines are there, right? So during the earthquake time we know that all the wire line, all the pipelines and everything get broken up. Like in the earthquake Bhuj, if we go 2001 earthquake Bhuj was there, where a lot of reconstruction activity has to be taken place regarding the affected communities. Okay, so whenever we say disaster management is a continuous cycle. Okay, you have to make sure that you have a pre-strategy, you have a response strategy, and what happens after disaster, because disaster will struck and people will get affected by it. So you have to make sure that how we are going to minimize the total damage done to these all places. Okay, now disaster risk reduction in India. Okay, disaster risk reduction in India. So how we are doing the pre-disaster risk reduction in India? First of all, focusing on mitigation. Mitigation means how we are reducing the impact of the hazard before any disaster strike. Okay, like if we know that tsunami is coming, okay, so we are asking the coastal communities people to move on to the higher land, take away their belongings with them, so that minimum damage should happen. But if we are not providing them with early warning system, huge damage will happen. Like, so we will be taking mitigation measure, like we know earthquakes, so we know flood, cyclones are coming, right? Wrong, we know cyclones, we know floods, okay, they are coming, so we can take some mitigation measure beforehand. Okay, so what we can do, we can make earthquake resistance building. Okay, there is a Jamnagar refinery, when the earthquake struck in Gujarat, this got minimum damage. Jamnagar refinery has got very minimum damage. The reason being is that because this has been made on 8 and above Richter scale of earthquake. That means the building has been designed in such a way that the severity of the above 8 Richter scale earthquake only can then can damage all these structure. Okay, so that means they have made the Jamnagar refinery has been made with such a resistance, earthquake resisting material, because we know that this is the highly seismic zone, so they know that they have to make the building in such a way that they are highly earthquake resistant. Okay, we can construct the flood embankments at the places where we have a cyclone, where we have a flood prone area. Then preparedness, beforehand preparedness, we should do all the regular disaster preparedness drill, like mock drills. You know, if you go to any offices and hospital, you can see mock drills are happening, mock drills related to fire that is happening, right? All of a sudden they will put the alarm, and all the people have to move down, and there then they will be explaining like how they have to work and how they have to move during the time of any fire accident or anything that is happening. So keep mock drills has to be done. No, Japan is very well known for these mock drills. Okay, you can see that in Japan this is being highly prone to earthquakes and tsunami, right? They have a high level of preparedness. Even the school children's, each and every child knows what to do at what type of disaster is happening, what they have to do during earthquake time, what they have to do during the tsunami time. So everybody knows what is happening, what they have to do. So mock drills and everything has to be done. You know, we have a NDRF forces, right? SDRF forces, NDRF forces, they keep on conducting various mock exercises for various readiness and preparedness, and whether they are in proper coordination or not, that has to be always tackled. Now, post-disaster risk reduction. Okay, so post-disaster risk reduction, what they have to do under the post-disaster risk reduction, we have three things: rescue, that is the immediate one; relief measure; and then recovery process that we have already discussed, right? The Kerala flood, thousands of people have been previously evacuated, and they've been provided with immediate assistance. Then relief measures like temporary shelters are to be built. Okay, there are a lot of NGOs and non-governmental organizations are there. They are working day and night. They are making the relief camps and everywhere. So relief camps are being there. Then recovery from, like, now disaster have already struck. Now they have to move towards the restoration of the normalcy. Okay, they show that they should again go into the mainstream and they should follow the main track for that process. Okay, so normalcy has to be achieved as fastly as can. Okay, because we have to rebuild the homes, schools, hospitals, and we have to restore the essential services in order to bring the whole normalcy, right? So here there is an example of Chennai flood in 2015, which is being hit severely. So government has initiated a large scale recovery program to rebuild the damaged infrastructure and rehabilitate the people from there. Okay, now disaster risk reduction integrated with sustainable development goals, very very important. How disaster risk reduction, how they are linked with the sustainable development goals. Everybody knows that we have 17 sustainable development goals are there. Okay, how they are being integrated with the disaster. Now here we will be discussing one by one how each and every goal of the sustainable development goal is linked with disaster risk reduction. Okay, so we know that we have to achieve sustainable development goals by 2030. But until and unless we integrate with this disaster, because if there is any disaster that is striking in any part of the world, obviously it will be hampering with the achievement of the sustainable development goals, right? So if we go by the goal number 1, that is no poverty, we go by if target number 1.5 is there. Okay, so here we are strengthening the poor regarding the disaster risk reduction because government has started with National Rural Livelihood Mission. Here we are empowering the vulnerable communities of our country so that they should have resources in their hand in case any disaster strikes, so they can take care of themselves. Then we know goal number 2 is zero hunger, right? That yellow color box is there, right? Under that there is a target 2.4 is there. Okay, that is the fourth target that is there in the zero hunger criteria, in which we are running a national mission on sustainable agriculture. Okay, why? We are focusing on climate resilient agriculture. This will provide insurance to the farmers if there is any disaster that is coming regarding the crop losses because of extreme weather events. Okay, so this function that our Indian government is doing, that is Indian National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture, this is focusing on climate resilient farming, which is preventing the farmer, which is ensuring the farmer against any type of crop loss. Okay, then good health and well-being. Good health well-being is target number 3D. Under that, government is providing integrated disease surveillance program is there. Okay, then ICDS scheme is there, which is preventing the morbidity and mortality during the disaster like pandemic and epidemics like COVID-19. Okay, then we have a quality education, that is fourth goal. Under that 4.7th goal is there, where Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan we are doing, where we are building the school infrastructure, resilient and very good quality school infrastructure, where, and we are also teaching the training the students and teacher like what they should happen whenever they any disaster struck, what is the preparedness and what is the response they have to do whenever any disaster struck over there. Okay, then goal number 6, clean water and sanitation. Again, this is a this is a goal number 6 under 6.6 target. We are running a national river conservation program. We are restoring the rivers of our country. We are normalizing the river of our country. We are conserving the river ecosystem so that any disaster or anything related to flood or water scarcity should not hamper with the development of our country. Okay, then we have our industry, innovation and infrastructure. Goal number 9 is there. Okay, so we are asking, we are making smart cities. Smart city mission is going on. Urban infrastructure we are growing. We are growing earthquake resistance building and flood management, important flood management techniques we are running. Then goal number 11, sustainable cities and communities are there. Okay, under that we are having Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission, JNNURM. Okay, you might have seen there are various infrastructure development that is happening, where buses are there, even various type of new infrastructure is being developed under that, because we wanted to make our cities are disaster risk free. Okay, so like if there is any flood disaster like flood is there, earthquake is there, we should have a better upgraded infrastructure in place. Okay, then we have a goal number 13 is there, that is climate action. Here, in India, 2008, Indian government has made national action plan on climate change. 7 goals are there. Okay, so here government is adopting solar energy, then various type of renewable energies, then we are climate resilience, resilient agriculture. Okay, disaster resilient infrastructure are getting created. Then life below water, we are making coastal regulatory zones are there, where no construction activities are there. We wanted to protect the coastal ecosystems. Okay, that is why we will be also providing impact because of the tsunami and the cyclone, because this will help in preventing any kind of severe damage to the coastal areas. Then we have a life on land. Okay, like life on land, because we wanted to protect the land degradation, we wanted to protect the biodiversity. Okay, that is why we have a plan like Indian National Afforestation Program that is going on, which is restoring the forest area of our country, which will helping in reducing the vulnerability to the forest fire and various type of landslides that are happening. Okay, so this is how our disaster risk reduction is linked with the sustainable development goal. So how our sustainable development goal is linked to various type of disasters, that has been explained over here. Now, what is the challenges in disaster risk reduction? What are the challenges that we face? Now, what are the challenges in disaster risk reduction in India? First of all, we all know these terms regarding, right? So here you can see, like I normally provide all the points in a properly detailed way to all of you, right? So here you just have to make sure that you have these detailed points into your memory. You don't have to find any other notes or any other things anywhere, right? Here you have all the related points, everything is there in this video. You just have to read this video and you have to supplement it with current affairs. Okay, so we will be providing you with current affair magazine and everything. We will be providing, right? So you will be getting supplemented by the current affair, and only that much is sufficient for your whole examination. Okay, so we should always have a limited content and maximum revision that should happen over here, right? Now, what are the challenges in disaster risk reduction? First of all, insufficient implementation of disaster risk management plan. So we have plans, but their enforcement is hindered because there is a very limited capacity of the government, very lack of public awareness. Okay, so people are not adhering to various standards and regulations. Okay, people are not adhering to regulations and standards like building codes are there. So this just by just to get you example, like this is a building code for this, the fire safety norms are these, earthquake norms are these, like that. So people are not adhering to the various building codes, and because of a lot of vulnerabilities are happening. Then lack of local capacity for implementation. We know that at local level, okay, whenever the disaster struck, like at a countryside, okay, so they have a very very weak capacity. They don't know what to do during any type of disaster until and unless they get support from the government or from the local authority, or like a district administration, like that, okay. So they do not have proper trained personals, resources and infrastructure in case any disaster struck. So that is why it lead to the delay or inadequate response. Okay, then there is an absence of integration of climate change. Okay, in lot of plans there is no integration or a lack of integration of climate change. We know that climate change is the real thing right now, so we need to integrate whatever the plans we are making. We should put a concept of climate change in all these planning. Okay, whatever we are making, whether it is related to cyclones, okay, we know that cyclones will be stucking, okay, but we should know the severity, should know the frequency of the cyclones, okay, right. Earlier the cyclones used to come one or two, but right now the severity and frequency of the cyclones have already increased. Okay, so that is why, because we need to put a concept of climate change at everywhere. That is why, because of non-integration of the climate change plan, we are ill prepared. We are preparing for cyclone in a normal way, but automatically the cyclone can come in a very very severe way, right. So there has to be a concept of climate change integration in all the plans that we are making. Then divergence of political and economic commitments. So there is a lot of competing needs are there. Political needs are different, economic commitments are different, so there is a totally divergence of the resources. Okay, so there is a very very because of these issues there is a diversion. There is the resources get diverted, the political and economic resource get diverted from one place to the other. So wherever the resources are needed, they are not being reaching on time. Okay, so limited resource and attention allocated to the disaster risk because of these political and economic commitments. Okay, so wherever the funds are needed for the disaster preparedness, they are being diverted to some other pressing issues. Okay, and because of that it will hurt the long term resilient building process. Then there is a very poor coordination among the stakeholder. We don't know like how the district administration, how the state administration, how the local administration has to work during the time of disaster. What is the role of each and every authority, whether it is NGO, whether it is people, whether it is a district administration, local administration, whosoever they are. So there is a inadequate coordination that is happening. So this lead to the gaps in assessment. This lead to the gaps in monitoring. Because of that, early warning system also gets failed. So because of that, we do not provide proper response mechanism to all these processes. Okay, now the sixth one is insufficient investment in disaster resilient strategy. Why disaster resilient strategy? If you wanted to invest, so people see that it is as a waste of money. People think that how many times disaster struck? Do the disaster struck every day? This is a kind of a question people normally ask. So they said that why we should invest so much heavily in disaster resilient strategies. That is why there is a lack of adequate investment in these area and infrastructure area, and private sector has a very very minimal contribution in that. Okay, and some industries, those who are big industry where government is forcing these industry, they are taking some resilient measures, but at various places the various places are still prone to the disaster risk are there. Okay, now we are coming into the another most important topic regarding the evolution of global disaster management framework, like from Yokohama to Sendai. Okay, like how the rules and regulation, how the disaster should be managed. There is an international framework that has been created. Okay, so we will be discussing one by one what is this international framework that has been decided and what is this prone to. So this whole process started in 1989 when International Decade for National Disaster Reduction was created. Okay, it led to in 1994. It led to the Yokohama Strategy and Action Plan. Okay, there is an action plan that has been created that is in Yokohama. Okay, Yokohama. Then in 1999 we have International Strategy for Disaster Reduction that has been created, and then came a very like a flagship framework that is called Hyogo Framework Action Plan from 2005 to 2015. Okay, so this is for 10 years. Okay, this is for 10 years. This whole framework has been created. After the over of this 10 years framework, then we have a Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. This is being made for 15 years. Okay, from 2015 to 2030. So right now Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction is right now going on, and every framework whatever we are making throughout the world is based on the Sendai framework, because Sendai framework provide us with a structural and skeleton for various type of disaster mitigation strategies. Okay, so first of all we will be understanding what is Yokohama strategy for INNDR. Okay, that is International Decade for National Disaster Reduction. So this was a world conference that has happened in Japan in a city of Yokohama, okay, which focuses on global disaster management. Like they are focusing on, like they have to decide on the need, why there is a need, why there is a concrete global effort that is needed for mitigation natural disaster. Okay, so India has actively participated in that and established disaster management authorities in India. Then after that there is establishment of UNISDR, that is United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, that is succeeded IDNDR. Okay, so the main this is again with implementation the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction Strategy. The main focus area of this is to have a coordinated international effort, how we can promote the best practices, how we can build the resilient infrastructure during the risks. Okay, again the India has once again participated in this whole process, and now India has also started putting early warning systems in our country, and a community based disaster preparedness plans have been created. Okay, then comes a very flagship program like a framework that is called Hyogo Framework for Action, that is 2005 to 2015. It is a 10-year plan. Okay, so this provides the first time with legal policy framework, preparedness and innovation. Okay, so what this framework has prioritized, the risk assessment, community resilience building, mainstreaming disaster risk reduction into development agenda. Like we have to put all these things in our own development agendas, right? So India has integrated this Hyogo Framework for Action into our disaster management risk framework. Okay, then comes the Sendai framework for the disaster risk after these 10 years are over, then 2015 to 2030. So this is a holistic and comprehensive approach toward the disaster risk, focusing on understanding why the disaster is happening, how we can improve the governance of whenever any disaster struck, how we can do investing in resilience activity, preparedness and recovery. Okay, so India has again aligned its all policies and national policy with the program of Sendai framework. Now this Sendai framework, Sustainable Development Goals, Paris Climate Agreement, all are being integrated together in order to look the disaster as a holistic concept. Okay, disaster risk reduction as a holistic concept, whether it is related to developmental goals, whether it is Paris Agreement, all these things are all interconnected. And if we wanted to do the disaster risk reduction, we have to look all the things in a holistic way. So that is why India's National Disaster Management Plan integrate disaster risk reduction with sustainable goal, climate resilience and poverty alleviation program. Okay, so we have the what is the differences between Hyogo to Sendai. Okay, Hyogo, that is our 2005 to 15, and Sendai is from 15 to 2030, right? So what is the main difference over here? Okay, so see, both have a purpose of reducing the disaster risk, right? But Sendai framework focuses on stronger emphasis on preventing any disaster at the first strategy, okay, and reducing the existing disaster. and also strengthening the resilience. That means more comprehensive. Okay, time frame we have already discussed 2015 to 5 to 15 and 2015 to 2030. Then SFDRR, that is Sendai framework, expands the scope not only to the natural but also climate related hazards. Okay, under the priority area, Hyogo has a 5 priority area and Sendai framework is having a 4 priority area, focuses on disaster risk and enhanced disaster risk governance. Okay, inclusion of climate change. Sendai framework has included the climate change in all its framework. Okay, and Sendai framework focuses on inclusivity. That means inclusivity, everybody is including, vulnerable groups and various social groups are being included over here. Then Hyogo Hyogo framework for action. Then monitoring and reporting mechanism, like how monitoring and reporting mechanism will work. So here in Sendai framework we have a clear monitoring and reporting mechanism for everything, but in the Hyogo framework of action there is not that much accountability and transparency. And global cooperation, yes, if we compare Hyogo with Sendai, so Sendai framework is having much more global cooperation, because we have already learned the lesson from the Hyogo framework on action plan on disaster, and now we are building on Sendai framework, so we have much more global cooperation in this whole areas. Okay, so now what is the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction? So now we will be discussing the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, that we call it as SFDRR. Okay, so this is still going on till 2030. Okay, so it is a non-binding agreement which recognizes the state has prime role of reducing the disaster. Okay, so this responsibility of reducing the disaster should be the responsibility of all the stakeholder, like local government, private sector, stakeholders and everybody. Okay, so this framework was adopted by the UN members on 18th March 2015. Okay, so at the 3rd UN World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction in Sendai city in Japan. Okay, so that is why Sendai framework. Okay, so this is a follow-up of Hyogo framework. So this is the target has been total 7 targets have been there. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 targets are there. First of all, we have to reduce the global disaster mortality substantially by 2030. Okay, so they are being all aligned with your sustainable development goals. Okay, so we have to reduce any kind the mortality that is happening because of the disaster to substantial amount. Okay, substantial reduction in the number of people affected by the disaster by 2030. Okay, reduce the direct disaster economic loss of global GDP by 2030. That means we have to reduce the percentage of the global GDP, direct disaster economic loss, by a good number. Then substantial reduction in the disaster damage to the critical. We have to save the critical infrastructure and substantial reduce the disaster in the critical infrastructure of basic nature and essential services. Okay, like educational, health facility, pipelines and various other things. Then substantial increase in the number of countries with national and disaster risk strategy. That means we have to increase the number of countries who have their own disaster risk reduction strategies. That the countries has to be increased in this category. Okay, then we have to enhance international cooperation between the developing countries through adequate and sustainable support mechanisms of this framework. Okay, and then substantial increase in the availability and access to the multi-hazard early warning system. Okay, any country who's having a good early warning system, they have to share with their other countries. They have to provide the proper availability to the other countries in order to prevent any kind of disaster that is happening by 2030. So these are the 7 important targets that has to be achieved under the Sendai framework. So 4 priorities areas are there. 4 priority area, like how we have to first of all understand the disaster risk. What is the disaster? Then disaster risk governance, then investing in reducing the disaster and enhancing the disaster preparedness. So these are four priorities areas under the Sendai framework. So understanding the disaster risk. So we have to first of all understand the dimensions, vulnerability, exposure, who are the person, what are the asset, what are the hazard characteristics. Okay, so these knowledge will help us in properly analyzing the risk. We will be able to properly assess the risk, and in this way we will be able to prevent, mitigate, and we can also prepare for the risk. Okay, then strengthening disaster risk governance, right? So what is happening over here? So whatever the risk governance model are there, whether at national level, regional level, local level, or global level, so it is very very important that we should strengthen this whole governance mechanism for speedy response, for speedy recovery, for speedy rehabilitation, speedy mitigation measures. Okay, so that is why for all these things we need a very important collaboration and partnership with our countries, neighboring countries, various other countries. Okay, they will be providing you with various resources and everything. Then investing over here, because people find that this is a waste of money, but there is a need to invest in various other places in order to prevent any disaster that is stucking. Okay, so this will help in reduction. Okay, so here we have to provide various type of economic, social, healthcare, cultural, and various type of assets to the people, so that we have to do a proper investing in disaster risk reduction. Whatever the measure we can take for the tsunami, what we can take for the earthquake, what we can take for the floods, what we can take for the droughts, what we can take, right? So these are the various investing in these all places, how we can do the investment so that we can reduce the disaster over here. Okay, then preparedness is much more needed. Okay, we know that if tsunami is coming, we cannot stop the tsunami. Okay, we cannot stop the waves, right? We cannot stop the earthquake, right? We cannot stop the floods, right? But we can prepare for that. Okay, we can take some pre-measures to ensure that we are well placed and we are much more effective in responding to any kind of disaster at any level. So we will be able to properly integrate this disaster risk reduction with various type of developmental measures. Okay, so these are the four priorities areas are there. Okay, so now Sendai framework readiness review that has happened in 2017, where critical data gaps are still existing. Okay, like disaster losses, then international cooperations, okay, early warning system, risk information, okay, there are strategies. So this review has been done, and this review has confirmed that until and unless we are solving these data availability gaps, okay, until and unless we are focusing on quality, until and unless we are focusing on accessibility and addressing the country's ability for properly addressing the needs, and we are having proper good quality monitoring mechanism, we have a very good quality reporting mechanism, we will not be able to face any kind of disaster properly. Okay, so this is what the Sendai framework readiness review report has said. Okay, now we have certain global partnership for disaster related data sustainable development. Okay, so what are some of the important global partnership that we are focusing on? So under the global partnership, we are talking about like how we are fostering a collaboration among the various international organization, private society, international organization, international government, civil society, data communities, and everybody. How we are integrating all together in order to mitigate any issue related to the disaster risk. Okay, so here we have already discussed regarding that how we have integrated the 2030 agenda of sustainable development, and then we have a Paris agreement is there in 2015, right? COP21 summit, that we call it as COP21 summit, that has happened, where we have discussed like how we are going to mitigate the climate change issue. Like we in the COP21 summit that we have already discussed that we are focusing on reducing the temperature up to 1 point. We were limiting the temperature by 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of this century. Okay, so this will help in mitigating the various impact related to the climate change that is happening right now. Okay, if we are able to control the temperature rise by 1.5 degrees Celsius, then we will be able to prevent the various type of issues that are related to climate change. This will further enhance the prevention of various type of a disaster. This will prevent the various type of disaster that is happening because of the climate change. Then we have a various goals are there. Goal number 1, 2, 3, 4. We have so these have all specific targets are there regarding the disaster risk reduction. Okay. Now we are moving towards the acts and policies that are related to disaster management, like how in India we have come up with the policies and acts related to disaster. So first of all, we have come up with the high powered committee in 1999. Okay, so we earlier all the things related to disaster were under the Ministry of Agriculture. Okay, whatever the disaster is happening, Ministry of Agriculture is taking care of that. So until 2001, responsibility is with Agriculture Ministry regarding the disaster management. After 2001, it has been transferred to the Ministry of Home Affairs in June 2002. Okay, so and after that in 2005 we have come up with National Disaster Management Act. National Disaster Management Act. Okay, so National Disaster Management Authority was established in 28th September 2005. Okay, and on 23rd December we have came with Disaster Management Act. Okay, so now we have a law that is all dealing with the disaster management, that we call it as the National Disaster Management Act of 2005. Okay, so we started in 1999 when, as a national committee after the Gujarat earthquake that has happened. So they have said that there is a recommendation they have given, like we should have a disaster management plan, and for that there are a lot of plan, like during that time we have a 5-year plans were there, right? So they have their detailed chapters is there on the disaster management. Okay, so all these talks and all these conferences, all these 5-year plans have culminated into 2005, in which we come up with the enactment of National Disaster Management Act. Okay, so what is the meaning, what is the purpose of National Disaster Management Authority? So under the National Disaster Management Act, we have created National Disaster Management Authority, that is the apex body, on the top body, which takes all the decision related to disaster management. This make laws, this make policies, they create guidelines and everything regarding the disaster management. Okay, so they lay policies, they approve national plans, they lay down guidelines, they recommend provisions, they provide support. So everything related to disaster is being provided by this whole body, that is National Disaster Management Authority. Okay, so then we have a national policy on disaster management. Okay, so this was approved in 2009. Why? The main purpose is to build a safe and disaster resilient Indian by developing holistic, proactive and multi-disaster oriented technology driven. Okay, so under that we have a policy that we have created, like what exactly we wanted to achieve. Okay, under National Plan for Policy for Disaster Management, so there is a we are focusing on like what holistically what we are going to do, what proactively what we are going to do, what multi-disaster oriented study that we are going to take place in our own country. So under that policy everything is written regarding that. Okay, after that we have a Prime Minister Plan 10-point agenda for disaster risk reduction. Okay, Prime Minister 10 points plan. Okay, these are the 10 points. First of all is all development sector must imbibe the principle of disaster risk management. So wherever the development is happening, they should focus on disaster risk management. That is the first point. Okay, then second point is risk coverage must include all, starting from poor household to small medium enterprises to multinational corporation. Everybody, it should be holistic. It should be holistic coverage has to be there. Then women have a greater involvement in the disaster risk management. So women involvement is again put over here. Then invest in the risk mapping. Okay, we are having satellites, data and everything are there, which are tracking and trickling all the which are tracking all the things related to the disaster. Okay, then use of technology, leverage of technology that we have to utilize in a whole proper way and efficient way. Then we have to develop a network of university. We have to develop a network of university who will work on disaster related issues. Okay, so we should have a disaster related universities also should be there. Okay, then we have a 7th point regarding the utilization of opportunities and provide by social media and mobile technologies. Okay, how we can mitigate, how we can proactively use the social media, how we can proactively use the the mobile technologies in order to mitigate these disaster things. Okay, then eighth one is build local capacity. That means whenever any disasters, it is the people at the local level which are being has to be response first. Okay, so how we are going to build a local capacity, how we are providing mock drills and trainings and everything to those people, that we have to focus on. Then ninth one is make use of every opportunity to learn, like from disaster, from other countries, from lesson plans and everything we have to study regarding that. Okay, then 10th one is bring about greater cohesion in the international response. Okay, whatever the international response is there, we should understand the international communities, we have to understand international responsiveness, or like what they are doing and how they are responding to any disaster. So these are all the 10-point agenda of the disaster risk reduction in our own country. Okay, so this is the institutional framework for disaster management. Now, this is the institutional framework that is there in our country regarding the disaster management. Okay, so there is a institutional level at the center level, there is a institution level at a state level, and district level are there. Okay, so at the center level, you can see over here we have a NDMA which is working under the Ministry of Home Affairs. Okay, so whatever the disaster that is coming to our country, which is all coming under the Ministry of Home Affairs. So any cyclones or any floods or any tsunami or any kind of thing that is coming, the Ministry of Home Affairs and Minister of Home is taking care of all these things, right? So National Disaster Management Authority is directly coming under the chairmanship of Prime Minister. Okay, so there we have a National Executive Committee that has been headed by the Prime Minister. Okay, and under that they have created a National Disaster Response Fund under this act. Okay, where the fund will be generated for any kind of disaster mitigation activities. Okay, then Ministry of Home Affairs is there, under which national NDRF force are directly coming. Okay, NDRF forces are directly coming, and under that they have a National Institute of Disaster Management. Okay, so this is at a national level or a center level. Okay, so this is National Disaster Management Authority. Then we have at the state level. Okay, so this act, National Disaster Management Act of 2005, has created all these hierarchies. Okay, so at state level we have a State Disaster Management Authority, SDMA. So Chief Minister is the head of that. So they have the State Executive Committee under which officers will be there, and they have a State Disaster Response Fund will be there. Okay, similar things are being, institutions are being there. Then Disaster Management of Department is there, which is under the minister in charge, which is taking care of State Disaster Response Force. So if there is a cyclone in Gujarat, so State Disaster Response Force will be going first, and if there is any additional forces needed, then NDMA, National Disaster Response Force, NDRF force will be sent over there. Okay, in Union Territory, normally National Disaster Response Force is being sent over there. Okay, at a national level. Then we have a district government where District Disaster Management Authority is there, which is headed by the District Magistrate, DM, and in the case of a Jilla Parishad, we have a chairman who is, so this is a political head and this is the executive head. Okay, there they have a state executive committees is there. So this is a 3-level hierarchy that is there, institutional framework that is there. So here this is a total overall hierarchy, like how this is working, who is going to report to which places. Okay, so here you can see like National Disaster Management Authority is there, which is the Cabinet Committee on Security will be directly controlling this. Okay, Planning Commission has already gone with Niti Aayog has been there. Okay, then Ministry of Home Affairs is there, under which National Disaster Institute is there, and other ministries are there. Then Armed Forces are there, which are taking care of the NDMA, okay, National Disaster Management Act. Okay, then at the state level we have the Department Home is there, ministries are there, Home Guard is there, Civil Defense is there, Police and Fire Services are there. Okay, and in the district level we have District Development, District Disaster Management Authority, which is directly coming under the District Magistrate is there. Then we have departments is there, Home Guard is there, Civil Authorities are there. So this is our overall more detailed hierarchy is there, but you should remember this one. Okay, you should just remember, because nobody will be asking you this much so big hierarchy, because in the examination of UPSC they are not checking your like this pictorial graphing, but you should know the basics, like what is NDMA, what is National Executive Committee, what is National Disaster Response Fund. Okay, these are the important thing that you should know. Now National Disaster Management Authority aim is to create safer and more disaster resilient infrastructure, chaired by Prime Minister. Okay, role is coordination of the relief effort. Okay, they will be coordinating all the relief effort from the central level. If we go by the example, Cyclone Fani is there, which is there for that. Okay, then we have a State Disaster Management Authority is there, which is being headed by the Chief Minister. Okay, and then it plays a very crucial role in implementing the National Disaster Management Plan. Okay, so they are we go by example. Like in example, we take a Bihar example where they are being proactive in scaling our disaster preparedness regarding the flooding effort. Okay, flood that has happened in the Bihar. Okay, then we have a district disaster management authority. Okay, this is being chaired by the district magistrate. Okay, so they will help in collaborating with the local authority and civil society. So here we have an Indian Army. They have a rapid response in 2010 flash flood that has happened in the Leh and Ladakh region, where local district administration and local district management has done a proactive role in mitigating and in reducing the severity of this flood. Okay, now what are the government initiative regarding the disaster management? Now, what is the government initiatives? Okay, so there are a lot of government initiative that government is doing. First of all, government has committed to the Sendai framework. Okay, so government is doing all the necessary effort in dealing with the various type of disaster management risk, disaster management, disaster reduction risk, and all these things. So Sendai framework, we are already incorporating all the things related to Sendai framework in our disaster risk reduction program and policies. Okay, then we are taking regional cooperation from various other countries like South Asian countries. We have all our neighbors are there, like Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and everybody are there. We are collaborating with all our neighbors. We have our own responsive mechanism. We are conducting joint exercise. A lot of joint exercises. Navy are doing joint exercises. Then Air Force is doing joint exercises. These military exercises are being done in order to prevent these disaster, in order to mitigate these disaster, and if they're enduring the risk, and also to provide responses during the disasters. Okay, so these military exercises have this one more additional part of it. Okay, then we have even collaborated with UNISDR. Okay, that is United Nations International Strategy for Disaster Reduction. Okay, we have here we are exchanging the various ideas and techniques, and new disaster risk reduction techniques are there, and also early warning systems are there. There are a lot of forums, workshops, and everything's are happening throughout the world. Okay, India is participating in all these places at a very fullest way. Then we have a national disaster management plan that we have, where all the outlines of the plan, all the roles and responsibilities are being jotted down over there properly. Okay, national, state, and local level, everything are being properly enacted over there, and all are being working in an integrated way. So we are keep on updating our plans, we are keep on updating our lesson plans, and we are learning from various disasters like cyclone, floods, and everything, and we are including the comprehensiveness and how we can reach to this plan in the coming future. Then central government initiative, government is conducting a lot of mock drills, community trainings are going on, awareness programs are being generated. NDRF, National Disaster Response Force, they are doing training exercises in the offices, in the hospitals, in the schools, and various other places. Everywhere they are doing. Okay, then national disaster management services are there. They are providing all the safe communication infrastructure and technical support during the emergency operation centers. Okay, because we need the communication network during that time, so this is working over here. So we have our own separate networking communication network during that time, so that the speed of response can be increased. We know that this we have utilized during the Uttarakhand forest fires during that time. Okay, then earthquake disaster risk indexing, EDRI. Okay, we should know which are the main places where we have a high risk of earthquake. We have identified the cities, like 50 important cities are there, and one districts in seismic zone of 4 and 5, which are very severe. Okay, so that is why we are all implementing and we are prioritizing the disaster mitigation techniques, and high risk areas are there, which we are all doing in order to prevent, and also we are targeting various places, how we can invest at various other places, how we can invest in the buildings, how we can change the infrastructure, how we can make disaster resilient infrastructure. Then we are also upgrading our earthquake hazard mapping, NDMA with the help of BMTPC. They are also mapping, like earthquake mapping we are doing, and then the satellite mapping. Through the satellite mapping we are also tracking the cyclones and floods and everything, right? So this is how, like, this is providing better mapping, and that is why we are able to properly formulate the policy as per that. Okay, then we have a GIS based disaster risk management. So under the GIS based disaster risk management, we are leveraging the GIS technologies. Okay, how we are taking the data from the technologies, how we are integrating all the people, all the stakeholder in these areas in order to have a proper data set with ourselves. And with that data set we will be able to we will be having a data set in which, with the data set, we'll be able to prepare for the data, we will be mitigate, and we will also respond for that. Okay, so here it will help authorities in mapping the flood prone areas, mapping the earthquake prone areas, mapping the drought prone areas, and everywhere. So in this way they will be helpful in streamlining the rescue and relief operations. Okay, then National School Safety Program is also there, which is for the safety and disaster preparedness for the schools in the seismic zone of 4 and 5. Okay, we know that in 2011 there was a earthquake that has happened in Sikkim. So National School Safety Program has conducted the safety drills in the school across the states. So because of that, there is a lot of preparedness and lot of awareness that has happened, and because of this National School Safety Preparedness, it has reduced the casualties during the seismic event. Okay, so you can see that how pre-hand preparation will help in reducing the casualty on those areas. Now we are moving towards some of the success stories that has happened. Okay, so success stories like of disaster management in India, because zero casualty policy for cyclone. Now we in India, we have adopted the zero casualty policy of cyclone. That means there should be no casualty because of the cyclone, because we can easily predict the cyclone. Okay, for earthquake we cannot predict, okay, but cyclones we can predict. So we are expecting that there should be no casualty that should happen. Okay, so during the cyclone Fani in Odisha, this implementation of this policy effectively minimized the loss of life. So there is a very less loss of life that has happened during that time. Okay, if we go by the cyclone Biparjoy that has came in the Gujarat coast. Okay, so Gujarat government has done strong disaster management. This shows again a success story in this whole process. There was a flash flood that has come in August 2010 in Leh area. Okay, so this is there are a lot of loss of life and properties there, but Indian Army, with the help of local administration, here local administration has done a very big role. Okay, so we can just give the example here. The local administration have helpful with the help of army, have search, rescue and relief operation has been done. Okay, this help in mitigation and mitigation of the impact and help in restoring the normalcy. Then flood preparedness in Bihar. We know that there are a lot of flood keeps on coming in Bihar. Okay, because the Ganga river, Damodar river, and these get swelled up. Okay, so the state since 2011 has made notable progress in reducing the loss of life and property from the flood. Okay, so their effort has already contributed in saving a lot of properties and life during the floods. Okay, so recent are the cyclone Amphan is there in 2020, which came, then Uttarakhand flood that came in 2021, and COVID-19 pandemic. You know how well managed we have done our COVID-19 pandemic. We have a if we consider the life that has been lost internationally, we have a very less percentage of people who lost their lives in the COVID-19 pandemic. At the same time, we have even prepared a vaccination for the whole of the country and whole of the world. Okay, so this shows that how we are able to properly manage a huge pandemic that has happened because of the biological virus that has happened over here. So we have we have shown how large scale disaster management strategy we have taken over here. Then cyclone Amphan is there, where despite we have a huge cyclone intensity, we are able to properly manage it. Uttarakhand flood, because we have in 2013 we know about the Uttarakhand flood that has happened. So this time we have a very good data set with ourselves, like how we can mitigate any kind of flood that is happening. So this time we have NDRF forces and local authorities have coordinated very well, and because of that we have a very less number of lives that has been lost during that part. Okay, Now, issue in disaster management in India. What are the issues that are there in the disaster management in India? So, issues in disaster management in India. So, first of all, the major issue that we face in disaster management is lack of preparedness. Okay, we have already been pressing this issue that every time whenever anything happens, we have a very significant gaps that are there in preparedness, whether it is earthquake, whether it is flood, whether it is cyclone, and whether right now in cyclones we have came to close to a very good preparation, but still regarding the earthquakes and still regarding the floods and landslides, we have still are being unprepared regarding that thing. Okay, with that. Okay, so this is one of the major issues, that lack of preparedness. Then poor infrastructure and coordination, because we don't have proper infrastructure, and because of that we have a severe damage that has been done to all these infrastructure. Okay, like we don't have proper emergency operation centers are there. Rescue teams are not being stationed properly. Rescue teams are reaching at the location at a very late time. Okay, so there is a very lack of poor coordination that has been there. Okay, right. Disaster management as integral to governance. Okay, so right now this disaster management is still not being treated as any integral part. It is still being treated as an external part. Okay, it is not being fully integrated into the governance model, right? So there is a lot of lack of integration because of that, which hampers the whole process of disaster management. Okay, then we know that India has a huge population, huge size of the population is there, so it is very difficult to manage this population size whenever any disaster is stuck at a places which is prone to huge population, in whether in Uttar Pradesh, UP, Bihar, like that. Okay, so these area northern region are there, are being particularly a lot of seismic activity or flood areas, or we have a landslides are happening, floods are happening. Okay, so this can create lot of damage to the property and loss of life to the people because of the large population size. Okay, then there is an insufficient risk reduction effort, because we are not increasing the capacity of the local communities and local government. We are not supporting them, we are not providing the fund. Okay, so if any things happen, so they do not have any experience in dealing with these disaster dealing with these disaster. Okay, so they do not have a properly scientific planned adaptation plan. Okay, so they don't know what to do, because during the disaster stuck they don't know what happens. Like if train accident happen, the rescue team reaches at a very late time. Okay, so if train accident happen, so the rescue team reaches very lately. So who people are there, the people who are lying near the railway track reaches to the place very early, so they should know what is the process. Like you should keep on doing the mock drills to the people, like if something happens, what is their first response action plan. So capacity addition has to be done for the people. Okay, then we have an unclear responsibility. We don't know proper responsibility. What is the unclear responsibility is there. Okay, so unclear responsibility and poor implementation. So we don't have proper responsibility. Who is handling what type of responsibility? What is the role of DM? What is the role of a local authority? What is the role of the people who are responding over there? So that is very unclear in this whole process. Okay, so that has to be properly jotted down, and proper responsibility has to be tagged to everybody. Okay, so that there should be no confusion should remain during the time if there is any disaster stuck. Okay, so there should be emphasis on response over risk reduction. Okay, you should have a proper response plan. Okay, if you go to America, USA, Australia, wherever you go, they have a proper response plan for everything. Okay, so that is why similarly India should have a proper response plan. Okay, so why we are like here I just missed this point. So here we are talking about, like, since intense public and media scrutiny happens if any disaster happen, so the authorities are busy in responding to these public and media scrutiny rather than providing effort for risk reduction. So they should focus on their work first, and then they should focus on any type of public and media scrutiny. Okay, so that is very needed, because they should not focus on response, that what response they wanted to give to public and what response they have to give to media. First of all, they have to focus on how they can reduce the risk. Okay, then there's a lack of institutionalized accountability. Okay, so there is no proper accountability mechanism that is there. Okay, there is no institutionalized accountability, like who is accountable for all these process, like who has to be made responsible for everything. Okay, so lack of institutional accountability is one more thing that is again a very big issue in the Indian disaster management. Okay, now we are having some examples from India, like where we have faced a lot of issues, like Leh mudslide that has happened in August 2010, when heavy rain triggered a devastating mudslide in the Leh. Okay, a lot of casualties and infrastructure damage happened because of that, because of inadequate preparedness. Okay, because preparedness was not there and there's no proper response plan was there. Then in 2011 Sikkim earthquake was there, 6.9 magnitude earthquake was there. So this because of a highly vulnerable region was there, but and there is a need for better infrastructure and coordination for disaster response. Then 2013 we have a Uttarakhand flood that happened because that was a flash flood. Okay, so there is a widespread destruction that has happened because of that. There are a lot of loss of life of property that has happened. So again we have to focus on region vulnerability that has to be tackled. So there are a lot of things that has to be tackled because, and the first thing is preparedness, then responsiveness, okay, and then proper coordination nation among the various stakeholders in disaster response. This is all being the issues of our disaster management in India. Now, how we are enhancing the disaster risk reduction, what are the key recommendations that are there? So total 18 recommendations that I wanted to discuss with all of you. So what is the first recommendation? It is clarity in national and state responsibility. First of all, you should have a clear cut clarity what the central government will do, what the national government, what the state government will do, what the district role is there. Okay, so this has to be clearly laid out. So national NDMA has oversees the national policies, while state disaster management authority will be implementing these decisions. Okay, so this we have already cleared it down on the act. Okay, now the second one is capacity building for effective management. Okay, we have to increase the capacity. How we can increase the capacity of districts, state and central government, civil society, NGOs and everything in various type of risk management. Okay, so here we have taken an example that we got it from Kerala. Okay, where they are training the people, they are having local volunteers who are being working as a community leader. Okay, so they have a community based disaster management initiative. So again, this is one more thing which can be replicated. Okay, this can be replicated throughout our country, right? Then we have a third one, that is comprehensive disaster management cycle is there. Okay, so there is a cycle is there which everybody has to follow, like preparedness, responsiveness and recovery. Okay, so this cycle, okay, disaster risk reduction, this is having a holistic approach has to be followed. Everybody has to be told regarding like what is a pre-disaster thing that we can do, what we can do during the time of disaster, and after disaster what we can do. So this has to be properly laid down everywhere. Okay, right? Then the fourth one is revision of state disaster management plan. Okay, so state disaster management plan has to be revised each and every time. Okay, they have to be integrated with the new techniques, new rules, new program, new technology and new innovations. Okay, so here we have taken an example where Odisha is having an integrated risk reduction measure in the state disaster management plan, where they have incorporated the early warning system, infrastructure, resilience. So they are updating their document. Okay, they are doing revision of their, so it is not like that something they have done in 2005 and still they are following the same document. No, so in 2005 we are still in 2024, and after 1 year we will be having 20 years of this whole document. So in 20 years a lot of things have been changed, a lot of disaster has happened, so we have to keep on updating our own plans. Okay, then we have to do amendment of regulation hindering the risk reduction. Okay, we have to amend the existing regulation. Okay, we have to make sure that we should facilitate the new regulation which are being very prone, which are being new, and which we have to put and inculcate over there, right? We need to change the building codes, we need to change the fire codes, we need to check where we have to do the proper again mapping of the earthquakes. We need to, because in these 20 years a lot of things have been changed. Okay, So we need to keep on amending the regulation and everything. Then learning from the leading states. So we have our own leading state, coastal state, Bihar and Gujarat are there. These are the very important states which are related to the effective of disaster risk reduction strategies. Okay, if we go by Bihar, they have their own roadmap. Then the Gujarat, they have their own initiative, and several they have their own models of reducing the disasters. Okay, so we have to learn from various leading states, and you can learn from the international states also. Okay, international countries and various other things. Okay. Then we have to put establishing the accountability mechanism. That is the seventh one. That how we have to put a accountability mechanism. We have to specify accountability for each and every person. Okay, we have to keep on doing regular audits. We have to do the performance evaluations. Okay, which has been again a part of National Disaster Management Authority. So this will make everybody to remain intact in their own work. Okay, nobody will be working on a silo. So everybody will be accountable for whatever the role they are being going to be played. Okay, then utilization of disaster management fund. You know, the disaster management fund is being getting created in the national level and state level, right? So this fund has to be utilized for various type of training purposes, mock drills, then providing the risk reduction initiative. Okay, so Bihar is utilizing this fund for building the embankments, flood shelters, then temporary shelter, early warning system and everything. Okay, similarly all the states have to utilize this fund, and they have to make sure that this fund is getting generated from various places. Then we have to provide empowering state in the fund control. Okay, so because we should make sure that not only the central government should have a control of everything, the state should also get the full control, fund control, sorry, not full control, fund control, because they have to also, because these are the places where the states have to work on it. Okay, like Kerala state disaster management authority is there, which is controlling over the funds, and they are utilizing it for localized risk reduction measured and like that. Okay, similarly state has to be given proper control over the fund. Then focus is on private people, public private partnership has to be enhanced. Okay, so PPP model, like we have a Surat Climate Trust is there, they are innovating on financing of the risk reduction projects are there. Okay, then public private collaborations are being doing, right? Then we have a Maharashtra Mumbai Metropolitan Regional Development Authority projects are there. So we have to include the public private people in that. So we need to provide a certain models, proper models for these to work on it. Okay, like that. Now we have a scaling up risk transfer mechanism. That means the risk transfer mechanism and insurance schemes has to be scaled up. You know, government have come up with various schemes like Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Suraksha Yojana. Okay, all these are there, in which government is providing insurance services so that if there is any kind of risk or any loss is happening, so it can be covered with the help of insurance. Okay, then we have a integration of climate projection. Okay, everywhere, whatever the plans what we are making, anywhere we are making any kind of plans, we have to integrate all those plans with the climate projection. Okay, whatever the state plans, national plan, district plans are there, we have to include the climate action, climate model in everything, right? We have a Tamil Nadu state disaster management plan is there, which have included the climate model into there. So they are now finding out like what is the frequency or intensity of the cyclone and flooding event that are happening, like if the climate change is happening in such different ways, so how the frequency and intensity is going to be modeled. Okay, then utilizing open government data. So we should have a data platform, open government data platform, so that where we can do the data modeling and we can do the satellite mapping and everything with the help of a software, and we can analyze the data, and we can find out, and we can just prioritize the places which are needing much more attention than any other places, right? If we go by we can utilize the census data, we can utilize the socio-economic caste census data, satellite data, and various data we can utilize for that whole purposes, right? Then we have a enhancing departmental capacity. There are a lot of departments are there which have to be included in all the phases of disaster cycle. Like we have a Maharashtra state disaster management authorities there, They are providing training programs to government official, regarding the risk assessment, early warning system, and poor disaster recovery plan and everything, right? Then we have a, sorry, here we have a inclusive participation. Okay, we have a inclusive participation and vulnerability. So here we wanted to include each and every people into this disaster management process. The person belongs to any place, anywhere, any gender, any social status, or any type of marginalized group. So all have to be included, because the marginalized people are the people who are being maximally affected by any kind of disaster. So they have to be, we can inculcate the women self-help group, normal self-help group, NGOs, and everywhere. And we have to also incorporate the gender sensitive approach in vulnerability assessment, right? Then we have a gender mainstreaming in disaster management. Okay, so we have to train the disaster management official in gender responsiveness. We should know like what type of gender require what kind of responsiveness. The men's require what kind of responsiveness, ladies require what kind of responsiveness, but children's require what kind of responsiveness. Okay, so we have to integrate the gender consideration in all the things, so that we can have a proper equitable sharing, and proper assistance is being provided, and proper assistance can be taken from all the people in this whole area. Okay, then we have a collaboration with scientific institution. We have to keep on understanding, we have to keep on doing research and everywhere, in order to find out like what are the new type of disaster, and how we can map the disaster, how we can mitigate the disaster. We have to keep on doing research and analysis, data mapping, and everything we have to keep on doing. Like we have a Indian Meteorological Department is there, then we have a Center for Industrial CSIR is there. Okay, so we have to keep on focusing. Real time monitoring has to be done everywhere regarding the extreme weather events and various other things, so that we can have a proper risk management strategies that can be created, right? Then at the last, the guidelines for national authority has to be provided. Like we have a National Disaster Management Authority. They have to keep on supporting the sub-national government, whether they have their own government or whether they have opposition government. So they have to all align with, sorry, they have to all align with the global framework. Okay, like the Sendai framework, and they have to keep on learning from the global experiences, global initiative. Okay, so so in our country, National Disaster Management Authority always issue guidelines based on the Sendai framework. Okay, so we have a framework that is called Sendai framework. Based on that, we issue the guidelines over there to the state governments, with the this will help in reducing the risk, reducing the this will help in improving the strategies, this will help in reducing the risk, and this will all be integrated, and this all will be have a very coherent and alignment practice that we will be doing, because this will all will be get connected, and this will be giving a integrated process of properly disaster management strategy. Okay, so this will be helping us in fostering a coherence and a proper alignment with the international best practices. So this is all for today that we have to discuss regarding the disaster management. I hope all of you are doing great. So I'll be seeing you in the next lecture. Till then, bye bye, take care, and have a good day.